We all define culture in our own ways. Mostly culture is referred to the languages, values, beliefs and families. In today's society, we assume that two countries that are located very far from each other, so one's located on the east coast and one is located on the west, it's impossible for these two countries to have the same culture. As in this presentation, we will discuss cultural differences within various countries. We will discuss the costs of multinational trading, value of imports, importance of exports, and the likely future economic development of the countries. And these are our team members: Claudia, Saima, Gloria.
Darren Bay.
Luke Taylor.
Me and Gloria will discuss the different factors of culture for USA and India, starting with religion. In USA, 83% of the population is Christian, 13% has no religion, and only 4% have non-Christian religions, such as Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, etc.
Whereas in India, there's a wide range of different religions. They have Hindu, a number of Muslims, Christianity, etc.
Looking at languages, in USA there's no official language, however the most official businesses are conducted in English. There's a variety of languages due to immigrants, so we've got the three most spoken languages after English, which are Spanish, Chinese and French.
And so in India, the majority of people speak Hindi.
Looking at family, the USA have a nuclear family, so they only got their wife, children and their immediate family, whereas in India,
They usually have joint or extended families, so they will live with their aunties, their uncles, they will live with great parents, yeah.
Now lastly for values, in USA their children are taught to be independent, so this is what's passed on from generation to generation. They're not dependent on other people, they do everything themselves, they're taught to be more independent.
Whereas in India it's more family orientated, so family plays a big part in the culture in India.
So I'll be talking about the cost of multinational corporations and the trading involved with it and the costs that come with them. So a multinational corporation operates in numerous locations from one country to another. So they have branches in different countries. The things that affect them would be rules and regulations and the costs. So trading in one country to another, depending on how economically strong they are, developed countries would be more costly to trade with, as in developing countries or third world countries such as China, India and Africa would be at lower laboured and producing products would be much cheaper. The main cost factors of multinational trading would be importing, exporting, taxes, rules and regulations and cost of transportation. So I'll be talking about the values of imports. So importing is a very good source of trading. If you want to trade into a foreign market, you can actually benefit from the growth in the level of employability because you need more staff. It'd be cheaper labour because you'd be importing products from other countries such as, let's say, China. So China, they have a very low labour costs, so the product would be much cheaper. So it will increase the economies of scale, and the disadvantages are the tax cost because depending on where for China it will be depending on the location they're trying to send the material to, it will be high cost, such as if the UK, it will be high cost for them to send it to us than we send it to them. So it'll be a language barrier as well. That's one of the things that we need to consider. Language barriers would be communication, sufficient communication, and the materials can be cheap produced, so they won't be the same standards. So the importance of exports. So I'll be doing a comparison between India and UK. So export is very important to make sales and expand the target market that you're trying to reach for. You're actually bringing in products you're actually sending products to a different country, and that increases the relationship between two global trading countries. So one of the benefits is that between India and UK is that English is very widely spoken, and it's a fast growing economy of India, so that means that they'll be able to get influenced by whatever the UK is selling, and they want to include the economy. So they have similar legal and administration history of trading, and they have a large market population of 29 plus states, and they're highly influenced by the Western culture, meaning that they will obviously want products from there, and that's all worldwide. The disadvantage would be that the transportation costs will be very high, and there's a high level of corruption in India, so that means that the products can be not reaching where they need to, or the material could be mixed, and the rules and regulations won't be followed. There's multiple religious beliefs, meaning that you need to make sure that your product doesn't actually offend a certain culture or certain religion. And the climate change as well. So the climate, obviously being very hot there, very cold there, it does hinder the process of how your transportation gets there. If it's very hot, then it could, depending on what your product is, it can cause quite a lot of disturbances. And they have a lot of holidays as well, so religious holidays, so that could be an issue too. The exchange rate is another thing, so then that if you're in the UK, the exchange rate might be high for us, which is good for us, but if India is trading and we're from India, then it could be very negative, because we'd be receiving more money, less money.
The United States are likely to have future economic development in their country, because they're currently one of the leading global most powerful countries in the world, alongside China. They have huge financial markets, their housing markets, their money markets, especially Dow Jones and the New York Stock Exchange. They're also home to thousands of large corporations like Apple, Walmart, BP, McDonald's. The current GDP in the US is 19.4 trillion, which is the largest in the world. I think China is close with like 11 trillion. And the amount of imports for the US are rising in the fastest rate in the first time in 7 years. This basically means that more money is coming into the country, more money is flowing around the country. For India, they are likely to have future economic development, because currently they are the world's fastest growing country. In the last quarter of 2017, they saw a 7.2 expansion rate on their national economy, which is higher than any other country, compared to China was 6.9%, I think. India's current GDP is 2.4 trillion, and their GDP is expected to rise, but with current economy status, we don't know how much. It says 6 trillion, but India is a great place for outsourcing and globalization. This means that companies can move over to India and invest more into the Indian economy, and also India have loads of workers and a growing birth rate, which means they have a further expanding workforce. Comparing the US to India, both countries are likely to expand economically in the future, and they are predicted to continue leading global markets alongside China, Japan and Germany. India's population, however, massively outweighs the US population, with the US coming in at 323 million compared to the Indians 1.3 billion, which means that they have more potential workers again, and it also puts companies off investing or moving over to the US and outsourcing to the US, because there's only a 2.3% unemployment rate there, whereas in India the unemployment rate is much higher and much more potential for workers. The United States, however, are leading innovation in the world, with companies like SpaceX and Apple and Tesla, whereas India still needs to improve on their efficiency in the country, improving infrastructure, and etc.
So I will be comparing the cultural differences between India and America within their business practices. So starting off with India, business is made on a personal and friendly basis, so it's very laid back, and if someone isn't used to that, then it takes some time to get used to it and ease into that sort of business environment. Their English is used as a business language, so there's no need to translate any business materials or bring any business cards. Their Society is very hierarchical, so respect and appropriate academic titles should always be used because roles and status is extremely important in India, so you should always address the more executive people in a business first. Planning business meetings can be a long process due to many national and regional holidays, so these should be organised in advance and you should expect for them to be postponed at least once. When greeting, most shake your hand like everywhere else in Western countries, but some will put their hands together and bow down. So you have to be really kind of look out for that, just in case. And then meetings will always begin with small talk in order to maintain good personal relations. So yeah, and then business decisions and meetings can only be authorised and made by the boss, which is pretty much what they call the person at the top of the hierarchy of the business. And then in America, Americans are more known to be selfish. They really focus on individual accomplishments instead of teamwork, so you'll find that often that they'll be very competitive but efficient at the same time, and they're always open to innovation and change within a business. They also, when meeting with business people, you greet each other with a handshake and a smile, and they also believe punctuality is key, time is money, and English is used in almost every business. However, they are incorporating Spanish because of the surrounding areas like Mexico and a very large Spanish population. They also use sports terms. Sometimes they can be adapted if it's more of an informal setting, so they'll use things like touch base and game plan in their language. And then human jokes are usually welcome. Americans usually like to have a laugh. Executives are usually business entertained, so they'll host parties or dinners, drinks, things like that, not to build personal relationships, but to kind of persuade you to work with them in a sense, so they can attain their business goals. And the last point is Americans are very direct when they communicate. However, they try to avoid conflict because things like different opinions are viewed
So moving on
as a bad thing.
So to summarise what we've been talking about, so the main differences between India and the USA would be religion and family. So family is a very important thing to the culture in India, whereas in the USA people are more likely to be independent, and also in India they're more likely to have extended families, whereas in the USA people are more likely to live by themselves. So the cost of the multinational corporations can influence a business either positively or negatively. So this can depend on the economic strength of the economy. So if the country is more developed, then they'll have to pay higher costs for things such as tax for imports, exports, and transportation. To the likelihood of economic growth, both USA and India are likely to have some growth in the economy. India are a developing country, whereas USA are the most powerful country in the world. So both countries are likely to have future economic growth. So for business practices, we've seen that India's practices are more likely to be hierarchical. As Claudia said, they're more likely to have personal relationships, whereas people in the USA are likely to be more independent. So thank you.